The encounter in the rain. The rain fell like needles from the alien sky. Ethan Walker stood under a metal awning just outside the supply depot on Outpost Theta 9. The rain here wasn't like Earth's. It shimmered blue, hissed when it touched metal, and smelled faintly like ozone and flowers. His uniform was half wet, but he didn't mind. After 6 months on this border planet, he had learned to live with discomfort. He took a bite of his ration bar and glanced across the open space between the depot and the barracks. That's when he saw her. A shadow moved near the stone wall of the perimeter fence. He narrowed his eyes. Someone, or something, was crouching there. The figure was small, thin, and clearly not human. Her skin was a pale violet, glowing softly even in the rain. She wore ragged clothing, barely enough to cover herself, and her arms were wrapped around her body for warmth. Ethan's instincts kicked in. He reached for his sidearm but paused. She looked up. Big glowing yellow eyes met his. They weren't full of rage or threat. They were scared. She looked like she hadn't eaten for days. Ethan lowered his hand. He wasn't here to kill anyone, today. He reached back into the supply bag and pulled out a clean white towel. It wasn't much, but it was dry and warm. He waved it in the air, trying to show he meant no harm. The alien girl didn't move. Slowly, carefully, he walked through the rain. Each step sizzled under his boots as the chemical droplets hissed. He stopped 2 meters away from her. "It's okay," he said softly. "Here, take it." She stared at the towel as if it were made of fire. Her hands trembled as she reached for it. The moment her fingers touched the fabric, her eyes widened. Her lips parted in a gasp. She looked at Ethan as if he had just asked her to marry him. "What?" Ethan blinked. "It's just a towel." But she wasn't hearing him. She dropped to her knees in the wet mud and bowed her head so low her forehead touched the ground. Then softly, almost too softly, she spoke in a trembling voice. "You chose me?" Ethan's mouth went dry. "Wait, what?" The girl stood up slowly, holding the towel close to her chest like a holy relic. She was breathing heavily, cheeks flushed with deep lavender color. Her eyes shimmered with tears. "I accept," she said. "Accept what?" She took a step closer. "You have claimed me." "What?" No, I didn't claim. I was just trying to." The depot door burst open behind them. 2 alien guards, tall 4-armed brutes from her species, stepped out. One saw the girl, then looked at Ethan, then at the towel in her hands. Both guards dropped to one knee immediately. Ethan's eyes went wide. What the hell is happening? One guard spoke in broken galactic common. "You offer sacred cloth, she accept. She now yours, mate." "What? No, that's not what I meant." The girl stepped in front of him, placing a hand on his chest. "I am yours now. I am not worthy, but I will serve." Ethan looked around in panic. "Guys, it's just a towel." The rain began to slow. The blue droplets still hissed, but now it was quieter. The girl held the towel tighter. "You saved me from shame," she whispered. "I was to be punished, thrown to the beasts for running away. But now, I am bonded. You are my bond." Ethan felt dizzy. "Wait, running from what? Who are you?" She hesitated, then whispered a single word. "Royalty." He stepped back. What had he just gotten himself into? The girl gently bowed again, now smiling faintly. And Ethan, still standing in the rain, holding an empty ration bar, couldn't even find the words to speak. The sacred custom Ethan barely slept that night. The alien girl, Sci-Fi, as she now called herself, had been given a room in the medical bay, but she refused to be far from Ethan. She sat outside his quarters on the cold metal floor, guarding his door like some kind of devoted servant. He didn't know whether to feel honored or terrified. When morning came, the outpost was buzzing. Word had already spread across the base. A human had performed the ancient bonding rite with a royal blood alien girl. And the towel? It was no longer a towel. It was now a sacred relic, kept inside a glass case in the alien wing of the compound. The alien soldiers had carefully dried it, folded it, and placed it on a golden cloth, guarded by 2 warriors at all times. Ethan groaned as he stared at it from across the hallway. This is insane. Behind him, a voice spoke gently. It is sacred now. You offered it during exposure. In my people's eyes, that means you've claimed me before the stars. He turned. Sci-Fi was standing with her hands folded, her head slightly bowed. She wore fresh clothes now, an elegant blue robe given to her by the alien quartermaster. But her eyes still held the same look of awe when she looked at Ethan. You don't have to do this, Ethan said. I didn't know about your customs. I was just being nice. I know, she said, her voice soft. That's why it means even more. Before he could argue, loud stomping echoed through the hall. A taller female alien stormed in, taller than Sci-Fi, and her facial marks were more decorated. She was clearly someone important. You dare accept a towel, sister? Ethan instinctively stepped in front of Sci-Fi. The new alien narrowed her eyes. Human, do you even understand what you've done? I think I'm starting to. Ethan muttered. Sci-Fi stepped beside him. Sister, I didn't plan for this. You stole the right, the woman snapped. That towel was meant for my mating ceremony with Lord Varzan. You ruined everything. I didn't know, Sci-Fi said, shrinking. Ethan stepped forward. Hey, I offered that towel. It wasn't planned. And if this is some forced tradition, you are not part of our laws, the older sister hissed. But you are now part of the consequence, Sci-Fi whispered to Ethan. That's my sister, Varess. She's the firstborn. She hates humans. She will challenge you. Challenge? Ethan frowned. Like, paperwork challenge or sword fight challenge? Sci-Fi looked down. No, the ritual of choice. A public declaration. Ethan groaned. I already hate the sound of that. Later that day, a crowd of alien warriors and humans gathered in the courtyard. 2 alien priests stood in the center beside a large stone basin filled with glowing liquid. One of them lifted a silver scroll. Today, the human Ethan Walker must declare his intent. If he chooses Sci-Fi, the bonding is final. If not, she will be punished for violating tradition. What kind of punishment? Ethan asked. Her title will be stripped. She will be exiled to the frozen rings. Ethan glanced at Sci-Fi. She stood quietly with her hands at her sides, trying not to cry. She didn't beg. She didn't plead. She just looked at him like she was ready to accept whatever came next. He felt his heart sink. All this because of a towel? Ethan sighed and stepped forward. I didn't know what your customs meant, but I won't let her be punished for something I did. So yes. He paused, heart thumping. I choose her. Gasps echoed around the courtyard. The basin lit up with golden light. Alien horns played a strange but beautiful melody. Sci-Fi slowly stepped beside him, eyes wide with shock. You really choose me? She whispered. I don't know what any of this means, Ethan said. But you've been honest. And brave. I figure that's a good place to start. Suddenly a sharp scream cut through the moment. It was Varess. She held a spear, and her eyes burned with rage. This is not over, human, she shouted. You may have claimed her by tradition, but I challenge you by blood right. The alien crowd roared in approval. Sci-Fi's voice trembled. She has invoked the ancient rule. If you lose, she'll take me away forever. Ethan sighed and looked up at the twin suns. Great, all this because of a towel. Escape or embrace? A red sun burned low over the alien horizon. Long shadows stretched across the training field where Ethan stood, facing off against Varess, the older sister of Sci-Fi. He didn't have a sword. He didn't even have armor. All he had was a practice staff, some dried blood on his knuckles from earlier drills, and a pounding headache. Across from him, Varess spun her blade with ease. It hummed with power, sharp enough to cut clean through steel, and probably bone too. "You don't belong here, human," she sneered. "You think kindness makes you worthy of a royal? You think a towel replaces bloodline?" "I think you need to chill," Ethan said, gripping the staff tighter. "I wasn't trying to take anything, I just wanted her to stay dry." From the crowd, Sailari gasped, her hands trembling. This was madness. All of it. And yet Ethan couldn't. Back down. Not now. If he surrendered, Sailari would be taken, punished, and used as a pawn in some royal scheme. If he fought and won, the bond would become permanent, by ancient law. "Begin!" shouted the alien priest. Varese lunged. Her blade flashed in the sunlight. Ethan ducked. The blade missed his head by inches, but the shockwave knocked him off balance. He rolled backward in the dirt, then stood up again quickly, heart racing. She was too fast. But then again, so were most problems in life, and Ethan had survived worse. He waited. This time, when she charged again, he didn't meet her force with force. He sidestepped. She stumbled past him, surprised. He used the staff to jab her lightly in the back. Not a real hit, but a warning. He wasn't totally helpless. The crowd murmured in surprise. Some alien warriors began nodding. But Varese wasn't impressed. Her eyes now glowed with fury. She screamed, lifted her blade with both hands, and then suddenly, boom, a blast rocked the ground. Flames burst into the sky. Dust and smoke filled the field. The duel was forgotten. Alarms sounded. "They found me," Sailari shouted. Ethan turned to her. "Who?" "Rebel hunters, my father's enemies. They don't want this bond to happen. They want me erased before I'm legitimized." Another explosion shook the compound walls. Ethan grabbed Sailari's hand. "Then we're getting out of here. Now." They ran through the corridors of Outpost Theta 9, dodging falling pipes, sparks, and terrified soldiers. Sirens blared. An alien ship had landed just outside the base, and hostile warriors were pouring out looking for one girl, Sailari. "I thought you said you were royalty," Ethan shouted. "I am, but I escaped. I refused to be used as a bride for politics. That's why I ran, and ended up near your outpost. I was hiding." "From an arranged marriage?" "Yes, and now they want to punish me for choosing a human instead of a warlord." Ethan laughed bitterly. "Great, I knew towels were dangerous, should have just given you a snack." They reached the edge of the base and climbed into a supply crawler, an old transport vehicle barely held together by rust and hope. Ethan slammed the controls. The crawler shot forward through the desert, leaving behind fire, smoke, and confusion. Inside the cabin, Sailari sat beside him, holding the sacred towel tightly. "You didn't have to fight for me," she said softly. "I didn't fight," Ethan replied. "I ran." "No, you protected me." He didn't say anything. His hands were tight on the controls, eyes scanning the horizon for more trouble. But in his heart, he knew she was right. He didn't understand all their rules or strange customs. He didn't even know what this bond truly meant. But the way Sailari looked at him, not as a soldier or a human, but as someone who treated her with basic respect, that meant something. And maybe, just maybe, he didn't mind the bond. Not anymore. Secrets in the storm hit harder than they expected. Winds howled like angry beasts. Blades of sand sliced through the air. The crawler's engine had failed 2 hours ago, and now Ethan and Sailari trudged on foot through the wasteland, half blind, soaked in alien rain and dangerously cold. Ethan's boots sank into the soft ground with every step. He glanced behind him. Sailari was shivering again, her elegant robe soaked, the sacred towel tied like a sash across her chest. They couldn't keep walking. "Over there," Ethan shouted, pointing toward the jagged rocks ahead. They found shelter inside a hollowed cave. Dark, damp, but safe. The stone glowed faintly blue, reflecting the same glow that often shimmered beneath Sailari's skin. Ethan collapsed near the wall and sighed. "We'll rest here till the storm clears." Sailari didn't answer. She stood at the cave entrance looking out into the rain. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked. She nodded slowly, but her eyes were distant. No. He sat up. You've been running from something bigger than your sister, haven't you? She turned to him. My people, they don't allow choice. I was born to a royal bloodline, yes, but I was born second. Not heir, not wanted. My father promised me to a cruel general to strengthen his rule. When I refused, they branded me disloyal. She pulled back her sleeve. A scar shaped like an X with curved lines marked her shoulder. They called me unfit, shameful. So I ran. Ethan looked at the mark in silence. And now they want to erase you, before anyone finds out the truth. She nodded. But now you've made it worse. Because they think you're my mate. And if you stay beside me, they'll come after. You too. He chuckled quietly. Already figured that part out, thanks. She moved closer, kneeling beside him. You still don't understand what that towel meant. I'm starting to, he said. But I don't regret it. There was silence between them for a long moment. Then Sayalari leaned forward and whispered, in our culture, when someone offers protection in a moment of weakness, it is more sacred than a kiss. Ethan blinked. You guys sure have powerful laundry rules. She smiled slightly but didn't laugh. Her eyes were glowing faintly now. Not with fear, but something gentler. I'm not asking you to love me, she said. I know this started as a mistake, but if I must be claimed by someone, I'm glad it was you. He looked at her. She looked so different from the fierce warriors who chased her. Smaller, softer, fragile but brave. Ethan reached into his pack and pulled out a thermal blanket. Here, he said. I can't give you another towel or your people might throw a wedding. This time she did laugh. Quiet, musical. She crawled under the blanket beside him. The storm raged outside, but inside the cave it was warm. She rested her head lightly on his shoulder. Her voice was barely a whisper. Ethan, if this is the end, will you stay with me? He looked down at her, and without thinking, without words, he gently touched her hand and nodded. I'm not going anywhere. Bonds and blades, they were asleep when the knife touched Ethan's throat. His eyes snapped open, heart pounding. A masked alien stood over him, dagger pressed close. Another figure held Sayalari by the arm, pulling her from the thermal blanket. Move and she dies, hissed the voice, gravelly, cruel. 3 more shadows appeared behind them. Rebels. They had tracked Sayalari through the storm. Ethan didn't breathe. His muscles were frozen, not with fear, but with calculation. His eyes scanned every movement, every footstep in the wet cave. One mistake, and she'd be gone forever. Let her go, he said quietly. The rebel leader laughed. You don't command us, human. She belongs to the council. She was promised. You're just a parasite. She's not a thing to be promised, Ethan growled. Without warning, he jerked his head forward, slamming it into the rebel's mask. The alien staggered. Ethan rolled sideways, grabbing a broken rock from the ground. Before the others could react, he flung it, square into the second rebel's eye. The grip on Sayalari loosened. Run, he shouted. She didn't. Instead, she grabbed the sacred towel from around her waist, snapping it like a rope, and whipped it across the throat of the nearest attacker. He dropped, stunned. You came for me, she screamed. Then you die for your dishonor. Ethan couldn't believe it. Sayalari, gentle, soft-spoken Sayalari, moved like lightning, fighting beside him. Her small fists struck hard. Her feet were quick and deliberate. But they were outnumbered. More rebels pushed into the cave. Ethan took a punch to the gut. He swung, wildly, barely keeping up. His nose bled. His back hit the cave wall. One rebel raised his blade to finish him. Crack. Sayalari jumped in front, blocking the hit with her arm. Blood sprayed. No! Ethan roared, launching himself forward. He tackled the attacker, slammed his fist down again and again until the cave went silent. Panting, bleeding, trembling. He crawled back to Sayalari. Her arm was gashed. Deep. You idiot, he muttered, wrapping cloth around the wound. Why? Would you take that hit? She looked at him weakly. Because you gave me a towel and I never forgot what it meant. He laughed through tears. That's the dumbest reason I've ever heard. She smiled. Then we're both fools. They lay there, holding each other in the fading glow of the cave. Hours later, a rescue team from Outpost Theta 9 arrived, following the smoke trail from the crawler's wreckage. Ethan and Sailari were pulled into medical pods and flown back, to base. But something had changed, not just in their bond, but in how others looked at them. When they landed, alien warriors bowed low. Even Ethan's fellow human soldiers looked impressed. Ethan asked why. The medic simply said, "Word spread. You bled for her. She bled for you." In their culture, that's the ultimate proof of bond. You two are no longer just connected. You're sacred. Ethan looked at Sailari resting beside him, her hand still gently gripping his. He had entered this mess with a towel. Now it seemed he had won the heart of a warrior princess and the respect of an entire species. And somehow, that mattered more than any rank he'd ever held. The Emperor's decision, the golden warship, arrived without warning. It hovered above Outpost Theta 9 like a god staring down at an ant's nest. Its hull glowed with ancient symbols. Its engines didn't roar, they hummed with a sound that made the bones shake. Ethan stood on the landing pad with Sailari beside him, her arm still bandaged, her expression calm, but her fingers were trembling. "He's here," she whispered. "Your father?" Ethan asked. "No. The Emperor." The ship's ramp lowered. A line of armored guards marched down first, their armor black and sharp-edged like obsidian blades. Then came him. He was tall, nearly 8 feet, with a crown made of glowing bone and eyes as cold as deep space. Every alien around Ethan fell, to their knees. Even Sailari dropped her gaze. Ethan didn't kneel. He stood still, spine straight, watching the Emperor approach. "You're the one who touched my daughter with a sacred cloth," the Emperor said. His voice was like thunder, slow, deep, final. Ethan nodded. "Yes, sir, I gave her a towel." "You insult our traditions." "Didn't mean to. You made a bond. I protected her." The Emperor stepped closer, towering over the human. "Do you believe you're worthy of her bloodline?" Ethan glanced at Sailari. Her eyes begged him to stay silent, but he couldn't. "I don't know if I'm worthy," he said. "But I didn't ask to be. I just didn't want her to freeze." The Emperor turned to his advisors. "Then let him prove himself the old way." Sailari gasped. "No, not the trial." "Silence," the Emperor barked. A moment later, alien guards surrounded Ethan. "The trial of beasts begins at moonrise," one said. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "That sounds friendly." They took him to the arena that night. It was ancient, built into a crater, surrounded by high walls and glowing lanterns. The crowd filled every seat, alien nobles, warriors, servants, and Sailari, watching from behind a force field. Ethan stood shirtless in the center, holding a simple wooden spear. He had no armor, no shield, just his instincts and a very uncomfortable gut feeling. Above, the twin moons glowed blue. The gate across the arena creaked open. Something growled. Then it stepped into the arena. It wasn't just a beast, it was a monster. 12 feet tall, covered in dark fur and armored scales, with tusks the size of Ethan's forearm. Its eyes locked onto him, hungry, angry, ancient. The crowd fell silent. The Emperor raised a hand. "If the human defeats the beast, the bond is blessed. If he dies, it was never meant to be." The beast charged. Ethan didn't run. He dodged left, then rolled under a massive claw swipe. He stabbed the spear into the creature's leg, but the tip broke off like a twig. "That's not good," he muttered. The beast roared, shaking the whole arena. Ethan backed up, grabbing a chain that hung from one of the arena's broken pillars. He wrapped it around his arm. The beast charged again. This time he didn't dodge. He ran toward it, At the last second, he slid under the beast's belly, looped the chain around its leg, and pulled with all his strength. The creature tripped, howled, and collapsed. Ethan scrambled onto its back and pressed a broken spear tip to its neck, but he didn't kill it. Instead, he whispered something. Quiet. Calm. The creature stopped struggling. It blinked and let out a soft groan. The crowd was silent. Even the Emperor rose to his feet. He didn't slay it, one guard whispered. He tamed it. Sailory's hands covered her mouth, tears in her eyes. Ethan stood slowly and looked up at the royal platform. I didn't come here to kill for love, he said, but I will protect it. The Emperor stared at him long and hard. Then he nodded once. It is done. A towel, a throne, a future. The arena was still, not from fear, but from awe. Ethan stood beside the beast he had tamed, his body bruised, his breath heavy, and his heart pounding. The creature, now calm, lay curled behind him like a protective shadow. Across the arena, the Emperor watched in silence. Then, slowly, he rose from his golden seat. The crowd followed. Thousands of alien nobles and soldiers stood as one. The Emperor stepped forward, his long cloak trailing behind him. Sci-Fi, still behind the force field, pressed her hand to her lips, eyes full of tears. Ethan didn't bow. He was too tired, but he stood tall. The Emperor reached him and stopped just one step away. His glowing eyes locked onto the humans. You fought with strength, he said. I fought with care, Ethan replied. You tamed a beast no warrior ever could. I just didn't want to kill it. The Emperor's face showed no emotion. Then after a long silence, he turned slightly and extended his hand, not in threat but in ancient alien gesture, a gesture of acceptance. Then you are no longer outsider. You are chosen. The force field dropped. Sci-Fi ran across the arena, straight to Ethan. Without hesitation, she threw her arms around him. He flinched slightly, still sore, but then hugged her back. The crowd erupted in a strange, beautiful chant. Thousands of voices calling the same name. Varalitha, Varalitha, it meant, one who binds stars with kindness. 3 days later, the royal palace opened its gates to humans for the first time in history. Ethan stood in ceremonial robes, the sacred towel now part of his shoulder cloak, trimmed with gold, blessed, by alien priests and officially named the Cloth of Unity. Sci-Fi stood beside him, dressed in silver and sapphire, no longer a runaway, but a princess restored. Together they stood before both human and alien delegates. A treaty was signed, a war was avoided, and the bond between two species was forever changed. That evening, under the twin moons, Ethan and Sci-Fi walked through the quiet palace gardens. Lanterns floated in the air. Strange flowers glowed with soft light. He watched her. She looked peaceful for the first time. You know, he said, I still don't understand half your traditions. She smiled. You didn't need to. You followed your heart. That's why you passed every trial. He chuckled. I didn't expect a towel to lead to all this. She stepped closer, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. You gave me more than a towel, Ethan. He raised an eyebrow. Oh? You gave me freedom. He went quiet. Then gently, he took her hand. And you gave me something too, he said. A reason to stay. They didn't need more words. The night wrapped around them. 2 different lives. Now one path. A human who never meant to be a hero. An alien girl who only wanted to be seen. And it all began with a simple towel.